Ever since the combine, there's been rumors abound of the San Francisco 49ers potentially in the trade market, whether it's trading for players, trading away players. Kirk Cousins rumors never seem to go away. Could Brandon Aiyuk claim such a haul that the 49ers have no choice but to trade him during the 2023 NFL draft? That and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Eric_Crocker. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're exploring the trade market here as the 49ers get close to the NFL draft. Teams retreating to their war rooms now after the pro day circuit, after the combine and a lot of this draft process. And there's going to be some other pro days and local pro days and some workouts and a lot of 30 visits and really teams fine-tuning their draft boards. And the 49ers might find themselves into some, in some trade conversations, teams calling them. We've already heard about some rumors of teams calling the 49ers about Brandon Aiyuk. And today, Croc, let's start here with Kirk Cousins. Ever since Kyle Shanahan became the head coach of the 49ers, Kirk Cousins, there's been a rumor probably once every offseason. Maybe once the 49ers traded up to number 3, there wasn't, but I think even still there was some weird rumors. Remember draft day even in 2021, after the 49ers had traded up to draft a quarterback, there was that Aaron Rodgers rumor. It was like, even still how they position themselves to get a quarterback, then there was the Aaron Rodgers stuff. It turned out to actually be true, and Kyle Shanahan made a call about it. But the latest from Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, about Kirk Cousins. So let's start there. Could Kyle Shanahan finally be reunited with Kirk Cousins? This was the quote from Mike Florio. Apparently, quote, at the combine, there was some chatter. There was some noise among people within broader league structure, not the media, but people in the league about Cousins being traded to the 49ers. That was a hot topic at one point in Indianapolis. And we heard this during the combine. I don't remember if it was Florio or somebody else that reported it, but now we're hearing it from Florio again. Croc, this is lying season 2. Are you believing what you're hearing right now about Kirk Cousins? Is this a possibility? Because that's the other thing that happens in the month of March and April is you hear so many things. And we already know for a fact that the 49ers had no problem lying about things when it comes to the NFL draft and keeping things a secret, letting the media or letting people run with stories that aren't true if it benefits them. And maybe the Vikings are doing the same thing. Agents are always talking about stuff. So what do you think about this one from Pro Football Talk? Kirk Cousins and the 49ers once again in the 2023 offseason.
It sounds like a lot of this is speculation. Speculation from people around the league trying to figure out what the 49ers are going to do. They look at the situation like us, where it's like, okay, you got Trey Lance, but you don't know what you have. You have this great team. You got Brock Purdy, but he's hurt. How could the 49ers salvage this situation, potentially? Well, maybe like Kirk Cousins. Would they be interested? Would that work on all sides between Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings, maybe Trey Lance, sending him back to Minnesota where he's from, and him having a fresh start? So maybe people just kind of speculating what it could be, even people in front offices just trying to figure out what the heck are the 49ers going to do. I think it's more so of that than the 49ers going around saying, hey, maybe we're interested in Kirk Cousins. We haven't had a whole lot of talk. I don't think that's what's going on. I think it's just all speculation, which was very similar to when the 49ers traded up to number 3. There was a lot of speculation then. I think the only thing that we know that was not speculation was, 1, 49ers were definitely interested in Matthew Stafford. 2, they were definitely interested in Deshaun Watson. 3, they were definitely interested in Aaron Rodgers, because we've heard all of those things come out of Kyle Shanahan's mouth. The one thing that he did not mention during that time was being interested in Kirk Cousins then, and I don't think he's interested in him now.
It's funny how things happened in 2021 with the Stafford trade, and then the 49ers, it really felt like a not a rushed move necessarily, but it felt like reactionary with the 49ers trading all that to go up to number 3 that I didn't think they needed to do at the time, and especially that early. And the Deshaun Watson stuff, if all that didn't come out in January of 2021, I really think Deshaun Watson right now would be a 49er, because the Niners are willing to spend 3 first-round picks on a quarterback. And Deshaun Watson would have been a no-brainer talent-wise for the 49ers, but all that stuff came out about him. So he was removed for the conversation. How wild would that have been if Deshaun Watson wasn't a complete creep, he might be quarterback of the 49ers right now.
I think a lot of it, man. The 49ers just, it seems like they struggle to kind of like legitimately have a plan and stick with it regardless of how it's going to come out. And maybe they were willing to do that last season with Trey Lance, but it almost feels like, they changed with the weather, right? Like just the seasons. And you have 4 seasons during the year, maybe more, depending on where you live, or less, depending on where you live. But it feels like they just kind of change when the wind blows, and it's like, okay, maybe we can go with this, or maybe we can go with that. Part of it is just mostly surrounding the quarterback situation and really just not having anything like solidified. And I think right now it's a solidified as it's been, but even then, it's still not 100% because the guy is having a robotic elbow on right now.
It did rain a lot in the Bay Area this winter, so maybe that got the 49ers doomy and gloomy and in a different mode. And maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Kyle Shanahan was sitting in his room, couldn't go outside, and started writing love letters again to Kirk Cousins. I think it's total BS. And then on top of everything, the new contract structure for Kirk Cousins, that was a big contract that had been redone and restructured, and they have 4 void years on Kirk Cousins' contract right now to try to get that salary cap number down again. I think he's got a $20 million cap hit now for 2023. But a ton of dead money if they were to trade Kirk Cousins. It's a little bit better for trading him than cutting him. But they wouldn't really save any money. And then they have 4 years of voids all the way through 2027. The next 4 years, because he's going to be a free agent after this, and they'll have cap charges every year for 4 years through 2027, even though he won't even be on the Vikings unless they do a new deal with him in 2024. So that's wild. I don't buy it at all. And the way the 49ers have done their current plan and put together their roster right now of quarterbacks, he doesn't even fit. It doesn't even make sense unless there were other moves to come. So Kirk Cousins doesn't pass the BS meter. It's lying season. Whoever's talking to Florio is full of it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And even with Florio, it almost felt like it's not even something that he heard directly. Like the way that he reported it was kind of like him hearing it secondhand from somebody that might have heard about it from someone else.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those in league circles sort of a thing. And everyone's just I think everyone's just guessing. And they're like, oh, Kyle liked Kirk at one time, so maybe they'll trade for Kirk Cousins.
Well, that's what they did during the draft. Well, Kyle likes this type of quarterback. So, they're definitely going to take Mac Jones. And it's like, well, everybody was really wrong.
And that's the thing with the national guys. So the national guys are really good with agents. And agents give information, and it's accurate, and they're able to break stuff all the time. But teams don't give them that information very often. Sometimes they do, especially when it benefits them, but they don't have as much information from teams as they get stuff from agents. And so when you heard everybody so sure that the 49ers were going to draft Mac Jones at number 3 in 2021, and all those national guys were wrong. When you hear this from Florio, when you hear last week, it was Ian Rappaport on NFL.com talking about how Sam Darnold's probably going to be the starting quarterback. He's just completely guessing. That's not something he heard from the team. He's just looking around and is like, well, that's the low-hanging fruit. They must not like Trey Lance. He's, because that's what happens when you draft a quarterback. If he's not amazing a year later, everyone thinks he's a bust, and he's, he goes to the back of the line immediately. And it's too difficult to kind of project everything with the 49ers. So like, oh, they signed him Sam Darnold, so they must love Sam Darnold. He's going to be the starter. I think that's just low-hanging fruit. And I think that was like Ian Rappaport not hearing anything or reporting anything. I think that was him just
Did you hear how he worded it? Every time I heard him, it's this sense I get, the feeling I get, right? It's nothing that's like, hey, this is what's going on. Or this is what I'm hearing. It's more so of him listening to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan talk, and then however he interprets it, that's what he kind of puts out. Then it was Ian Rappaport, or it's Daniel Jeremiah, or whoever it is. So, well, of course, like this must be what he's hearing. But it's like, no, listen to how he says it. It's like he's speculating just like us.
Yep, absolutely. The other quarterback trade possibility is Trey Lance going somewhere. We've talked a lot about this one. Maybe quickly, Croc, next we can kind of narrow down what we think that trade offer would be from a team. If the 49ers were really willing and really maybe even trying to trade Trey Lance and wanted to go with a quarterback room of Brock Purdy, and they felt good about his recovery with Sam Darnold as the backup quarterback. And Brandon Aiyuk has people trying to trade for him. Like, if people are calling the 49ers about Brandon Aiyuk. People are calling the Bengals about T. Higgins. This is not a great wide receiver class. It was not a great wide receiver free agent market. So there is a market there if the 49ers wanted to do that. And we know there have been calls about Brandon Aiyuk. Let's talk about that one and what the 49ers could get, because there's been some arguments on whether or not Brandon Aiyuk would get a first rounder from another team to the 49ers due to him not being a number one wide receiver. Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Built Bar. I hope everybody voted in the Built March Madness bracket. It is builtmarchmadness.com. I know it's not March, but I think you can still sneak in and bet, and the tournament's still going. In fact, the title game's happening right now as we're recording this podcast. And hopefully you voted for the peanut butter puff. Croc loves the peanut butter bar. Croc loves the puffs, but there are tons of great flavors at built.com. Unbelievable flavors. The newest Snickerdoodle Chunk Puff Bar. That's right. You heard me right. Brownie batter puff, coconut marshmallow. There's the new limited edition Crave Built Bar, which is only 160 calories, 17 grams of protein, only 5 grams of sugar, caramel, and peanuts in the Crave Bar, and also covered in 100% real chocolate, salted caramel, cookies, and cream. You can get a mixed box of Built Bars. You can build your own box of Built Bars and get any flavor you want. Low in calorie, low in sugar, high in protein. Most Built Bars only 130 calories with 17 grams of protein and only 4 grams of sugar. So run to built.com right now to get yourself a box of whatever flavor you like, and tons of new flavors coming all the time. And you can start finding them on your store shelves as well. Check them out at built.com. All right, Croc. Brandon Aiyuk. There has been calls. Our colleague and maybe a little salty host of the Locked On Cardinals podcast, we got into an argument a little bit. It was a friendly argument. Love talking with Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals and love our crossover podcast. And the Cardinals might be in the market of trading their wide receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. And I said something on Twitter like, oh, there's no doubt the 49ers would get a first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk if they wanted to trade him right now. And we'll get your opinion on it in a second. Judging by the look on your face, I think you agree with me. And Alex Clancy disagreed with that. And I went into the Locked On DMs and asked a few people, was like, what do you think? Would your team do it? And Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys was like, man, if we didn't already do the Cooks trade, I would easily give up pick 26 for Brandon Aiyuk. Kyle Krabs, who is with the Draft Dudes, the new Locked On Scouting podcast, and is big into the draft, and he said, no doubt, a guy that's had a 1,000-yard season, that's a first-round draft pick, that still has 2 controllable years for whatever team would trade for him, would absolutely garner a first-round draft pick. And I totally agree. Now, how high of a first-round draft pick would the 49ers be able to get? And do you think there could be some trade, Croc, that kind of shocks the world a little bit on draft night, like the A.J. Brown trade last year?
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be like a DeForest Buckner trade, right, where you get the 13th overall pick or 14th overall pick, whatever it was.
Brand Carthon, they need a receiver over there, and Brandon Aiyuk might be the best wide receiver in the world that you could possibly get with that 11th pick in the draft that the Titans have. And I'm not saying they should or would, but Brand Carthon might like himself some Brandon Aiyuk with whoever he's got playing quarterback over there in Tennessee.
As far as what he's worth, man, and you kind of go on social media, you see him tweet out like, dude, I was a 1,000-yard receiver as the 4th option in a run-heavy offense. And that's kind of a flex, right, to be able to say that. Like, look, I was productive, and I'm not in this pass-happy offense that a lot of you other people are in. We kind of talked about the offense the other day where it almost feels like Kyle doesn't say, you know what? Every game, no matter what, Brandon Aiyuk is going to get his 9 targets, right? Because there are teams where no matter what, the receivers are going to get 8 to 10 targets and multiple receivers, right? Like, I don't know how many targets Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown got per game, but I would say it's probably like each of them 8 to 10. And the 49ers with Brandon Aiyuk, they can have a game where he goes and gets
2 catches.
Two catches on 3 targets. Or 2 catches on 4 targets, right? Like just something ridiculous. And anytime you see the 49ers really target Aiyuk, he's very productive. And then there's just games where they go away from it. Matter of fact, I think we talk about Clancy, but against the Arizona Cardinals, he had 2 touchdowns on 2 catches. And I just think it's kind of ridiculous. So there's a lot more production left in him. I still have my things that I believe that he can continue to add to his game as a contested catch guy and a little bit better run after catch, right? But overall, I mean, still, with me even saying that, still a terrific receiver, knows how to get open, catches the ball, drop here and there, but he can make plays. And I think there's a lot in there that he still has to give. And will he ever be able to do it with the 49ers? Because I don't know if they're going to give him those type of opportunities. So if you are the Niners, knowing I have Deebo Samuel, I have George Kittle, I have Christian McCaffrey, I have all these other guys, and you know what? I got a Jawan Jennings who he's not Brandon Aiyuk, but you know we could throw him in the rock and he can do some things. If somebody comes and offers me a first round pick, I gotta take it. And I like Aiyuk. I really like Aiyuk. But if somebody says, "Hey, we'll give you a first right now for Aiyuk," I take that.
Oh, so I disagree partially with you. I think on just one thing, and I will say I understand why people would be like, "Oh man, Brandon Aiyuk, really? Just throw down first like nothing?" And I think the league absolutely would. But I could buy the argument from somebody saying, "Well, Brandon Ayuk's good number 2, but is he true number 1? Like a dude? He's not AJ Brown. I would trade for AJ Brown before I traded for Brandon Aiyuk. You know what I mean?" Yeah. So, and he's not in a contract situation yet, so there's more value there for Aiyuk because he has more years before free agency than AJ Brown did.
Well, like a Stephon Diggs, right? Was it Stephon Diggs who, when he got traded, needed a new contract? So it's like he still garnered up first, but part of the reason why that's like, hey, you got a first and you have to sign him. Where Brandon Aiyuk, there's actually more value on the 49ers end because it's like, well, look, we're not in a rush to do anything with him right now. We can keep him next 2 years and we don't have to force him out. So if you were still able to get it first, I think that's good, but because that's even more valuable to somebody who, hey man, we traded first, but we only got to pay him for 2 years.
Right. And then you can give him those number 1 targets and he'll probably be worth more. And so maybe you'd even want to do him do a new contract as soon as possible with him and then start giving him those number 1 targets.
So I think that's the tough part. I don't, because you brought up AJ Brown and then I brought up Stephon Diggs, but I don't think you can compare it because those were both guys that had to get paid.
They had to get paid.
So it's like you got to give the first and get paid. It's just a totally different scenario. And DeForest Buckner as well.
But they were better players that, you know, contract aside, would have been worth more and more valuable. You already saw them in a number 1 role, knew they were number 1 dudes. Brandon Aiyuk, there's still some projection there to say, I think he can be a number 1 guy, but he's never been that. And I wonder if Brandon Aiyuk wants that. So the 49ers have to juggle a lot of things with Brandon Aiyuk where it comes to future salary, who they can bring along as part of the next wave of San Francisco 49ers in a couple of years with Brandon Aiyuk if he does get a big contract. And they've got to weigh all of those things. They've got to weigh how good they think he is. How much value would a first-round pick be for them versus their number 4 option in their offense? Because as good as Aiyuk is, you could say you don't want to trade him, but at some point, maybe that player you could get with a first-round pick would be more valuable to your team than the 4th option in your passing game.
Right.
So there's a
lot of people would say that he is the wide receiver 1. Like you'd hear people say that. And I wouldn't even necessarily, because of how the 49ers utilize their guys, quote unquote, wide receiver 1 doesn't mean anything because at the end of the day, if Deebo still has more targets, then he still has more targets.
Yeah, it's sort of like the quarterback argument about like who true franchise quarterbacks are. There's not really 32 of them, but there's 32 starting quarterbacks. There's 32 wide receiver 1s in the NFL. And if you rank the top 32 wide receivers in the NFL, Brandon Aiyuk would probably be among them. But true number 1s, there's not 32 of those guys. And I don't think Brandon Aiyuk deserves to be in that group of dudes yet.
Could he be though? And so you did say that there's projection there.
Yeah.
But again, I talked about I guess. What do you ask of your wide receiver 1? And if I'm comparing him to guys that I feel like he should be playing like them, right? Like that is Stephon Diggs, right? Like that type of guy. Separator, wins vertically down the field, run after catch. He's routing guys up. He's creating separation. He's an alpha guy. I mean, we saw what they call it, the Minnesota Miracle, whatever they called it, with the walk-off and he threw his helmet, right? Like that is, like that, clearly that's a wide receiver 1. And we see what he's done for his quarterback and Josh Allen as well, which you can't kind of guard him, right? And I think for Aiyuk, his production, it feels like it's hard for him to get 100 yards, but again, could be the offense. So that's the other part to this, right? If you were to say, let's say, all right, we're going to trade Aiyuk to, I'm just trying to think of a team off the top of my head that I just hit, Arizona Cardinals, right? They get rid of Hopkins and they do whatever with Hopkins. They get Brandon Aiyuk in this hypothetical situation. How much more do you get out of Aiyuk in an offense that's going to just, hey, we're spreading it out. We're going to have these bigger lanes. You do your thing. We're going to throw you the ball at all levels of the field. What would his production look like then?
I mean, more targets is going to be a lot more production. You brought up something really important, though. And to me, that it has to be there for a true wide receiver one, and that's going and getting the contested balls and winning the 50-50 balls, where you're skewing the 50-50 balls to 70-30 at least on your side. And Brandon Aiyuk hasn't proven that he's that yet at the catch point.
He never was. Like, he wasn't that in college.
That was
is an NFL player, because again, we're gonna have people in here that say no, and they'll kind of point to like a catch or so. But what we're talking about, just when you're not open, you're still open, right?
Close your eyes and throw it up because he's the dude.
Yeah, and he hasn't, and he's had the opportunities for it, and he hasn't capitalized on the ones that I think would kind of sway that number for us and how we view it.
And that's where the projection is, because he has the physical ability to do that. I thought he was going to be way better after the catch because he has the physical ability to do that. We actually saw that a little bit more out of him in college than we have been in the pros. So, and maybe just with more targets and being the target hog and being that guy, maybe that would change things for him. And, he's still a young guy. He's not even 25 years old, I don't think. So he's an interesting one, but I think no problem at all if the 49ers called everybody before the draft that has a first-round pick and said, we're going to make Brandon Aiyuk available. Teams would offer a first-round pick. Yeah. Question is, how high would it be? And then the other part of that, Croc, that I want to get to.
Would New York Giants offer a first?
Oh yes. Oh, that would be. They would flip. They would do backflips for Brandon Aiyuk with their first-round pick. What are they picking? 25, something like that.
Yeah, they did make a second round.
Right. They're picking way too high for how good their roster is.
Because who's their receivers?
Well, look. Let's put it this way: Richie James is their second best wide receiver.
Right. Well, who's their first best?
And he couldn't even make the 49ers roster.
Who's their first best?
It is probably the rookie from last year, Wan'Dale Robinson.
Is he their first?
He's a second-round pick. I mean, they got rid of Kenny Galladay, right?
He got my guy Isaiah Hodgins. All he does is catch touchdowns. But Hodgins isn't.
Number 4. I'm missing somebody. There's somebody else there that I'm forgetting that's on that roster.
There's Sterling Shepard.
Their top receiver is Darren Waller now.
Oh yeah,
Traded for Darren Waller at tight end, but he's not a wide receiver.
Yeah, but Brandon Aiyuk, Darren Waller.
Sterling Shepard, did they restructured his deal, right? Or did they
probably
cut him?
But he got my guy Isaiah Hodgins. So we got to throw him in there. He's kind of a wide receiver 3 type guy, but he gave him he dropped 100 yards and a touchdown in that playoff game.
That's basically all they have is like what would be a wide receiver 3 on the 49ers. Let me double check. I'm going to the New York Giants roster right now because I feel like I'm missing somebody. Did they do anything else at wide receiver?
I just don't. They're not throwing the ball, or maybe that would open up the passing game a lot more for them. I'm just trying to think of what makes sense to where we could see him have that legit opportunity to where he's going to get a high volume of targets his way.
Right. And so the question would be who would be willing to give up that pick. So Paris
and what would they do with him? Because here's my issue with the 49ers. The 49ers, if you just watch a game with Brandon Aiyuk, a lot of it is there's a lot of stationary stuff with him. If you watch and they'll line him up in the slot, but a lot of it's stationary where they don't motion him into the slot. It's just he's just kind of in the slot, or he's just outside and he's kind of just stationary and you got to win from there. You watch the Dallas Cowboys and what they do with CeeDee Lamb. Oh man, they're motioning him all the time. Motion from this side to that side. It forces the DB to have to play off, and then he's off in space and he falls off. Then they just throw the ball to him and they're throwing screens to him. And it was of course he has 115 catches or whatever he has. Because look at how they utilize him. They're moving him all over the place. They're throwing the rock. They're pushing it down the field. They're giving him those type of opportunities. And he hasn't been a CeeDee Lamb contested catch guy. I mean, Lamb was that at Oklahoma. But just that type of opportunity just to get a high volume of targets. I think Aiyuk could be that guy, especially if you used him in that way. But it's a lot more. His role, I think, is a little bit more difficult for him to just have the big numbers because just like, hey, just line up here or line up here. Not a whole lot of motion, not a whole lot of creativity with how they're going to utilize him. But, hey, line up in the slot, run this over route or run this out route or, but it's not like, hey, we're going to motion you here, speed this way, then you're going to fake this way. When he wins off routes, it's like, man, I have to really win off routes more so than getting more schemed open on top of having to get open with routes.
New York Giants wide receiver group right now. They added Paris Campbell from the Colts this offseason. Tight end, they have Darren Waller now, so they've gotten a little bit better there. Wan'Dale Robinson, second-round pick from last year, he was injured a lot. Isaiah Hodgins is in the mix. The number Sterling Shepard's still around. A lot of injuries for him as well. Darius Slayton has kind of had a really up and down career. So they got a lot of guys that are like all number threes, but they don't have anybody that's even a number two, really. Paris Campbell has done nothing hardly in the league, and he kind of came on a little bit after a few years, but he's still more of the gadgety variety guy. Tons of injury. All their whole entire wide receiver room is just littered with guys who are injured a ton. And so, Richie James, when it comes to the Giants, they would absolutely. And look, the only player I think available right now in the draft would be Jackson Smith and Jigba that I think teams would want more than Brandon Aiyuk to spend their first round pick on. And he's going to be gone, by 15. So now Brandon Aiyuk becomes the best receiver available if the 49ers were willing to trade him. And I don't think they are. But it would take a really high pick, I think. And I think the Cowboys pick at 26 that was brought up earlier from Marcus Mosher, they would offer it. I think I would turn that down because looking at this draft class and looking at the way it's shaking out, it's not a really top-heavy draft class. And after about pick 15 or so, I don't think there's going to be that sort of a quote-unquote first-round player that is like guaranteed, like, this is a first-round guy all day. And a lot of drafts, it's 18 to 20 guys are like that. I think there's even fewer this year, more like 15 guys. So we're talking about kind of a second-round player anyway, late in round one. That doesn't get it done for me. With the 49ers quarterback situation, you play this out one more year with Brandon Aiyuk, and you could still get probably just as much in return next offseason when you actually have to make a decision on Brandon Aiyuk, and you don't have to do that at the 49ers right now. So it would take a ton for me, and a late one probably wouldn't even do it.
Yeah, I'm looking at like just kind of the top 10 receivers in this class, and it's like,
what pick would do it? Would be the team that was rumored to really love Brandon Aiyuk that the 49ers jumped in front of in the 2020 draft to pick him, and that would be the Green Bay Packers, who are picking 15th. And if Jackson Smith and Jig was off the board and they want to get another wide receiver in there, I would do it for pick 15. I'm not sure I would do it for any picks after that.
Yeah, I mean, them losing Lazard, that's kind of big. Because you do have Christian Watson.
Right.
And that's a guy you spent a high second-round pick on him.
He looks like a dude.
But I think if you have Watson and Aiyuk and they can kind of play off of each other, I think that's like the perfect scenario for Jordan Love.
Yeah, I could see
if Jordan Love is a quarterback. I don't know what's going on with the Nightman going from the wilderness. Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, the dark room. Yeah, we'll see.
Did you hear the poop thing?
No, I didn't.
It's like he was while he was out there in the wilderness, he was just so in tune, I guess, with his body that he would go poop, and it was just like 2 wipes, and he was completely clean. Yeah, listen, I know with him it gets a little weird. When did Aaron Rodgers? I know he's kind of been a little different. Is it? I mean, he is from where he played. What Chico Humboldt?
Hey, I went to junior college with the dude. Shout out to college, man.
But he's from up there, right?
He's a Chico, California dude. Yeah,
that kind of
interesting folks up there. Yeah, there's some interesting folks up there. And
you go from there to Berkeley.
That's Berkeley too, and there's also interesting folks in Berkeley.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that. So that's what I'm saying. You go from Chico to Berkeley. That's a couple interesting.
Oh man, I love it.
But it just felt like coming into the league, he was Aaron Rodgers, but now it's like just weird vibes.
It's totally weird vibes, and that's why the Packers are finally done with. I mean, you don't want to get rid of a Hall of Fame quarterback, but the Packers are at that point. He's still a good player. And I think there is some stuff with Aaron Rodgers where maybe he missed out. He's a pretty good dude. He did a lot for the city.
He said, "Yeah, I'm immunized."
And COVID. He's been a good guy, and he's helped out the community. And I don't think he's completely crazy. I think he's also partially. I think he has a sense of humor and having a little fun with some of this stuff. And a lot
maybe
of
that's it.
Everything take everything.
They asked him.
He's out there right now. He's hanging out with some weird LA crowd too, which is part of it.
They asked him if he was vaccinated. He said, "Yeah, I'm immunized."
Yeah, I'm immunized. Yes.
I didn't say I was vaccinated.
Yeah.
And I'm like, either. I mean, cool. Like that's cool. That's his business. But it's just he's a little different.
Absolutely.
And maybe he's just to the point where there's some people that they'll tell you, when you start to make FU money, right? When you make so much money, you can just kind of. And I think he's to the point now where it's just like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm not going to do what I don't want to do. And I'm going to do things how I want to do it, and it just is what it is.
Dude, fame and money, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. That will mess you up, right? Everyone wants to be rich and famous, right? And then you get there, more money, more problems is one of the most truer things that's ever been said. Like you go, like it messes you up, especially high-level athletes. Michael Jordan, the dude's got to put $3,000 on everything.
A whole golf.
On whose coffee order gets done first, right? And like he's wired in a way. Like, can you even have friends? Does he have any friends? Does Tom Brady actually have friends? Because you have to be like so into this sport and give everything to this sport, and like so famous, and you're so rich, and there's people coddling you, and you're not getting real feedback from other human beings for so long. And Tom Cruise is one of the craziest human beings I think on the planet, and the Scientology stuff he's doing. Fame and riches will mess a human being up.
Hey, forget those people. I was in Stockton, and I'm at Planet Fitness working on my guy Drew from San Jose State, and the guy says, "Hey man, love Locked On 49ers, man. I love the show. I listen to you guys every day." I was like, yeah.
Don't let it go to your head, dude.
We made it. I'm famous now. I don't got the funds. I don't got the FU money, but we got the fame. We got that part, Peacock. They love the show.
Oh,
Couple people, man. I was walking out of a grocery store, and the guy. So here's the thing. Obviously, I was in California. I was in Stockton for almost a week. My son had to have surgery, so I was out there, and I'm usually not around town. Like usually I go, I mean, you know me, man. I'm in and out of Stockton. I feel like every other weekend I'm out that way or somewhere, right? And that's the first time I've ever just really been there and like did things, go work out at the gym, things like that. And everywhere I went, somebody was like, "Hey man, I listened to the pod." And I was like, that is pretty dang cool. And it was like, well, of course, could we look at our numbers? And of course we have a good audience, and that's awesome. But for, I'm just getting a workout, and it's like, hey, love the show. I'm like, heck yeah, man.
Yeah,
me too. I love the show too.
I tend to get long distance WhatsApps. Like I'm not worth like people going out of their way and changing their course of their day to say hi to, but I'll get a lot of Peacock, like kind of like from across the street kind of thing. We're like, yeah, what's up? They're like one of the. I'll get those. Wow. But I don't get a lot of.
I'm surprised they recognize you because you're so tall, and I think sometimes sitting in here, I get this a lot too, where people see me in person and they're like, "Oh, you're taller than how you look on the screen," but you're extremely taller. So I wonder if they're thinking like, well, Peacock looks like this 5'10" guy on the computer screen, and then they see you out in public, and it's like, wait a minute, 6'5".
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to say, and thank you so much, everybody. Every time we do this podcast, we say, thanks for making us your first listen, but we really appreciate it, man. If you ever see Crocker or I in person, let us know you listen to the show. It's awesome. We love you. We appreciate you for it. And, even if we don't run into you on the streets, wherever that may be. And this is global, Croc. You might go to Brazil and find a Locked On 49ers listener.
I was in Oklahoma.
Australia.
Yeah, I was in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'm walking by a guy, and he had a 49er hat. I saw the 49er hat, and I didn't hear him. But my buddy Malik that was with me said, I think that guy just asked, like, if it was you. And I guess what the guy said was, man, I think that's Eric Crocker. And I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the mall. And the guy pulled his phone out, and then my buddy said, yeah, that's Croc. And he was like, man, I listen to you guys all the time. So people really everywhere listen to Locked On 49ers. And I think it's so cool. It's probably, by far, I done signed an NFL contract. That was amazing. But this is cooler than that. Because, making it to the NFL, that's like, man, okay, I worked really hard for this. But like a show and people continuing to listen to us daily, and then, to see me out or see us and show our respect when we go to 49ers practice, and like the love. I mean, it's so cool. It's so cool.
It's awesome. And I want to hear from you folks. If you've ever seen Eric Crocker in person, I want to hear from you folks about what you think trades would be realistic for the 49ers. Maybe some other trades they might make on draft night that don't involve Kirk Cousins or Brandon Aiyuk. Maybe a position that the 49ers might be looking for on other rosters, a veteran to bring in, offensive tackle, some names like that. Let us know in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks everybody so much for making us your first listen. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, Locked On NFL Draft, and of course the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Myself and Matt Williamson, former NFL scout. We do it up every day talking about the entire league, and we got a brand new YouTube channel as well. So make sure you're subscribed up to Peacock and Williamson. Croc and I back tomorrow right here, Locked On 49ers.